What's up, everybody? I am your host, a writer willing to put everything on the line for one more taste of fame and success. And that is my co-host, a signed copy of Kentucky Blood. And welcome to the Grindhouse Syndicate, where today we are covering a movie that I personally think is one of the best films in the last 20 years. Scott Dickerson's Sinister, 2012. I love this movie. As many of you may know, I'm not too big on the creepy ghost possession movies, but I really like them when they are unique, got a good story, and it's not just the same stuff we always see. Also, the Super 8 grainy film, creepy music, family murders is fucking awesome.
Yeah, the Super 8 film is my favorite part of this entire movie. I think this movie does a really good job, and I think what makes it one of what I would consider actually genuinely scary movies is because it scares you on so many different levels. Like, it uses different types of horror, has jump scares, has psychological horror. But those Super 8 films, it's very, very, very unsettling, and it's done so good. It just makes you feel like it's something you shouldn't be watching. Like it's an actual snuff film. Like you almost get that feeling like I shouldn't be watching this.
It kind of puts you in the place of the lead character when he's watching them. Especially when you watch it for the first time, you're just like, you're not, because the kills are really unique. So you're not expecting it. You're almost waiting, like, how is this kill going to go? Like, how is this family going to die? And it just does a really good job of kind of putting you in that place.
I love that they also show the families like
Before?
prior to the kills. It always is like some nice, day, kids are playing in the yard or something like that. And, something you would find on a Super 8 film. And it just makes it feel that much more genuine and just really unsettling.
Yeah, the kills are so good, even despite the fact that there is very little blood in this movie, but it works.
There is a good bit of blood, but I put this towards the end in my ratings. But this is one of the few movies where we don't really get to see many of the actual kills. Like we don't see any of the gory kills. But this may be the only time you ever hear me say this on the show, but it's almost necessary for this movie. Like the way this movie's done, it almost feels right that they cut on those because you're in the shoes of the main character. You're going to look away when somebody gets ran over with the fucking lawnmower blades. Like it wouldn't feel right to show that in detail in this movie. And yeah, I just think it's necessary.
Yeah, I would say, and I've seen this movie, I don't know, probably close to 10 times. I think it's a near perfect movie. I mean, there's really not a whole lot I would change. The only thing I guess I would change is I wish some of the kills we did get to see a little better, like it didn't cut away. That's only maybe, like, off the top of my head, I'm only thinking of maybe 2. But yeah, I mean, there's really nothing I would really change about it.
Yeah, I can't fully put my finger on it, but I feel the opposite, man. I feel like they cut the kills at the perfect time. I also feel like if they'd have shown more of the kills, because you're thinking the whole time, who is filming this? Like who is doing this? And we never get to really see the reactions of the family, of the people who's filming it. We do a couple times, but they don't really have anything that would give anything away. But you really can't like see the hands of whoever's filming this or anything like that. And they do a great job of showing you enough, but not giving anything away.
Well, you start dipping into, maybe a quarter to halfway through, we start dipping into this is kind of supernatural. And once you kind of grasp onto the fact that this is supernatural, you almost don't even care who's filming or why you can't see their hands or anything like that. And, it's kind of just, it lets you kind of drop that idea that you need to, this doesn't make sense. How are they doing this and holding the camera? You don't even think about that stuff anymore. You kind of just go along for the ride.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. I'll say this is paranormal done right. There is a ton of paranormal type movies since 2000. I'd say this millennium that is just rinse and repeat. A lot of them are the same thing, the same haunted house movie with nothing different, no elements different in the story to really make it a different movie. And this is one that is completely different, was a complete unique idea. Instead of having the found footage, it's the story of the guy who finds the found footage. And that's actually something that Scott Derrickson, the person who made it, that's a quote he actually said. He was the director, I believe.
Yeah.
But
well, he co-wrote it as well.
But that's one thing that he said we'd never really gotten that before. And I think the idea of mixing the found footage with the Super 8 and the traditional way that the rest of the movie shot, mixing those two together was a dangerous idea, because that can be fucked up so many different ways, but I think they absolutely nailed it.
I also really like the idea of the true crime writer, because, we've seen in the past, 15 years or so, this explosion of true crime, of shows and books. Like, probably true crime books are probably the most purchased, read books this day and time. I mean, if you look at the New York Times bestsellers, a lot of them are true crime books. And I think that when this came out in 2012, you were seeing that explosion, and this was really great because you kind of jumped on the train without it, without getting on it late, and then it kind of looked like you're copying or anything like that. I thought it was just a good addition. This true crime writer is writing a book, and it also sets the story up. It makes sense why he's investigating it so much. Like, he's not just some guy or just some Joe Blow off the street, and all of a sudden he knows how to, figure this out and figure this out. Like, this guy is almost just as capable of the police of kind of looking at a crime. And we've gotten a many, like, cop investigates murders. There's plenty of those, but here we have a journalist investigating it. And I think it just helps the story.
Yeah, I could see them remaking this movie. If they remade it now, it would be, he did a true crime podcast.
I was about to say he's going to be a podcaster. Yeah.
He's trying to hit that big episode. That Kentucky Blood episode just blew up, and so it's been downhill since then.
All right, so before we jump into this, one thing I do want to do is shout out a listener who recently sent us an email. So, Nicole Loftus, thank you for listening to us babble on about movies and pretend like we know what we're doing here.
We try.
Yeah. Happy very early birthday, and we are totally going to do Carrie from 1976 for you at some point in the near future.
But first, if you want to stay up to date on what is going on with us or the show, talk about or submit your movie request, or just say hey, you can always find us at one of our social media accounts or our official website at Grindhouse.Horror.Pod.com, Facebook at the Grindhouse Syndicate Horror Podcast, Instagram at Grindhouse.Syndicate.Horror.Pod, and many more, which you can find links for in the show notes as always. And please subscribe or follow for alerts on new episodes.
And if you really love us and don't want us to move into a murder house where the whole town hates us, give us a review. Sinister is a 2012 supernatural horror film directed by Scott Derrickson and written by C. Robert Cargill and Derrickson. It stars Ethan Hawke as a struggling true crime writer whose discovery of snuff films depicting gruesome murders and strange supernatural elements in his new house puts his family in danger. It was produced by Summit Entertainment, Alliance Films, Automatic Entertainment, Blumhouse Production, I Am Global, and distributed by Lionsgate. It was released at the South by Southwest Film Festival on March 11th of 2012 and in the United States on October 12th of the same year. It had a budget of $3 million and a box office of a whopping $87.7 million. That's a lot of dolls missing their hair.
Yeah, I was extremely surprised when I seen that this budget was only $3 million.
Yeah,
That's
it's really
That's-
surprising.
that's not a lot of money for a movie that they pulled off so well.
Yeah, especially having like a big star like Ethan Hawke in it. And I guess they probably saved a lot of money with there really being one primary set. Maybe that helped out. I mean,
There's
there's not
not
a lot of
It's not a lot of cast either.
Yeah,
They
that's true.
probably cut like 10 people to pay Ethan Hawke.
It's true. Critics praised its acting, direction, and cinematography and atmosphere, but panned its use of jump scares and other horror cliches. It was considered a box office success, which spawned a sequel in 2015. To add to the authenticity of old home movies and snuff films, the Super 8 segments were shot on actual Super 8 cameras and film stock. The film was a co-production between the United States, Canada, and the UK. It has since developed a reputation for scariness and is considered a cult classic. A 2020 study by Broadband Choices named Sinister the scariest film ever made based on an analysis of viewers' heart rates. Writer C. Robert Cargill says that his inspiration for Sinister came from a nightmare he experienced after seeing the 2002 horror film The Ring, in which he discovered a film in his attic depicting the hanging of an entire family. This scenario became the setup for the plot of Sinister. In creating a villain for the film, Cargill conceptualized a new take on the boogeyman, calling the entity Mr. Boogie. Cargill's idea was that the creature would be both terrifying and seductive to children, luring them to their doom as a sinister Willy Wonka-like figure. Cargill and co-writer Scott Derrickson ultimately decided to downplay the creature's alluring nature, only including how it manipulates the children into murder. In further developing Mr. Boogie, the pair had lengthy discussions about its nature, deciding not to make it a demon but rather a pagan deity in order to place it outside the conceptual scope of any one particular religion. In crafting a look for Bagul, Cargill initially kept to the idea of a sinister Willy Wonka before realizing that audiences might find it silly and kill the potential for the film becoming a series. Looking for inspiration, Derrickson typed in the word horror into Flickr and searched through 500,000 images. He narrowed the images down to 15, including a photograph of a ghoul which was tagged simply Natalie. Cargill was particularly struck by Natalie and decided he liked the look. He and Derrickson contacted the photographer and purchased the rights to use the image for $500.
I feel like the last picture was a picture of Mick Thompson from Slipknot.
Yeah.
He's totally got
Yeah.
the
I agree.
Slipknot Mick Thompson look going. So some more really cool background on Bagul. So he's fictional, completely fictional pagan god. He's not based on anything. But the backstory between the first and second one that they used for some promotion for the second one as well. So he is a fictional pagan god created as the brother of real life pagan god Moloch, which we've talked about Moloch on here before.
Yep.
He is the one that Late Night with the Devil, the main demon or pagan god, the owl, essentially is based off of the pagan god Moloch, which is the pagan god associated with child sacrifice. And apparently, Bagul's mouth was sealed shut by Moloch for trying to imitate him.
Oh, I thought you were going to say talk shit. He's talking shit.
No more talking shit.
Yeah. So Derrickson explained that the image appealed to him because it reminded him of the makeup and costumes worn by performers in black metal, while remaining unique enough so as to not be directly linked to the genre. Derrickson had previously researched black metal while looking for inspiration for Bagul's symbol, which is ritualistically painted at the scene of each of the film's murder sequences. Some of the background music for the murder sequences was taken from ambient tracks by bands associated with the Norwegian black metal scene, including Ulver and Agnast. I probably said that totally wrong. Principal photography for Sinister began in autumn of 2011 after Ethan Hawke and Juliette Rylance signed on to star in the film. The Super 8 segments were shot first using actual Super 8 cameras and film stock in order to maintain the aesthetic and authenticity of home shot Super 8 footage. Principal photography took place on Long Island. The film was released on DVD and Blu-ray disc on February 11th of 2013 in the UK and February 19th in the US. So ratings. Rotten Tomato, 63%.
Yeah,
I thought this would be a little
surprised.
higher. Yeah, I thought it'd be in the 70s.
The cinematography on this movie is great. Like, it is a very dark movie. I thought the cinematography fit the story really good. So I was surprised at a 63.
Yeah, it is really dark because when I had to write the plot, I had my light on and I had to dim my light because just my one lamp being on in my room made some scenes kind of hard to see. IMDb gave it a 6.8 out of 10, Letterboxd a 3.3 out of 5, and the Google average audience rating is a 3.8 out of 5.
Fucking haters.
All those are wrong.
I'm surprised the Google rating.
I
That's
agree.
normally higher. That's normally people who actually aren't critics, just people going to watch the movie. So I'm very much surprised by that. One rating that or review that was good, I was surprised to see on the cover of the movie. It is a review quote taken from Roger Ebert.
That's
talking
surprising.
about how scary this movie is.
He normally shits all over horror, but every now and then he'll surprise me with a good horror review.
And it's normally one of those movies that's something that Rotten Tomatoes would give a good rating.
Yeah.
Something with really strong cinematography, like really good lighting, really good pace. But, I don't know. Apparently, Rotten Tom got fucking high, fucked up.
If you would like to watch this movie, you can currently find it streaming on Max. All right, so you want to talk about some plot?
Yeah, let's get into the plot.
So we start off with a very creepy scene of a family of 4 standing under a large tree, and we see that they have burlap sacks over their heads, their hands tied behind their backs, and ropes around their necks. We then see that the ropes are connected to another branch on the side of the tree, and this branch has been slightly cut, allowing it to slowly break under its own weight, and as it falls, it then begins to lift the family up in the air. We then see the family members start to kick their legs and struggle to get free as they are slowly strangled to death. Now, in order to accurately describe how creepy this shit is, I must inform you that this whole thing is in like this kind of slow motion, which makes it creepier.
Yeah. We actually get to see this kill like 3 times throughout the movie, which is
I think probably more than that.
Something that stuck out to me when you said that the original idea was sprung from a dream about finding a tape of a family being hung. So that makes sense of why this was kind of the primary focus kill that we see multiple times. But man, what a great opening fucking shot.
Yeah.
And already some taste of really creative killing. Never seen 4 people hung at once.
So the family struggle for air continues for a few moments, and as we start to see, one by one, each member stop moving, aka they die.
Who's gonna last the longest?
Once all 4 have become perfectly still, the shot freezes and we get a small title card at the bottom of the frame that says Sinister. I always love an opening kill. I actually heard, I don't remember who it was, I heard somebody the other day that was actually complaining about opening kills.
Well,
and
they're
I'm like,
dumb.
who the fuck complains about opening kills? Like, it's literally starting off the movie on a good foot.
I normally, like, when we get a good opening kill, that's a really positive sign that the movie's going to have good pacing. I don't know why. I feel like every movie that has, like, a really solid opening kill scene always ends up having really good pacing. It just starts you out on the right foot.
Well, I think it works really well because, most of the time we go to see these movies a lot of times for the kills. I mean, they're one of the main things you watch movies like this for. And you go in there and you get a little taste, and then it's like, okay, Now I'm willing to watch some story, some character building, and then we'll get back to the kills. But when you don't have that opening kill and you start getting 30 minutes, 35 minutes into this, character building and introducing you to the story, you're just like, all right, man, I get it. Come on. Let's do it.
Yeah, and there is some bad opening kills, some that aren't that great, but when it's done right, it really sets the tone for the movie. And most opening kills that we get in movies are a lot of times slashers. This is completely not a slasher, and this opening, the way they shot it, and like you said, it's slow motion. It's very creepy, super unnerving. And the first time you watch this movie, it locks you in. You're like, okay, this is the type of movie this is gonna be. I'm in.
So next up, we meet our main characters as they move into their new house. So we have Ellison Oswald, a famous true crime writer who struck gold when he published his book Kentucky Blood 10 years back. Then we have his loving and caring wife Tracy, his son Trevor, and his young daughter Ashley. So while the family is moving into the home, we see the local sheriff arrive and ask to speak to Ellison. Ellison then comes out and greets the old sheriff, but it doesn't look like this is going to be a very welcoming conversation. So the sheriff immediately tries to convince Ellison to pack his stuff back up and move from the house, which Ellison declines. This is when we discover that when Ellison writes his crime books, he doesn't speak too kindly about police departments, which in turn has made him and his wife targets of every police department in every town they have lived in since. Also, we find out that one of the two books after Kentucky Blood helped free a man who turns out was the actual killer in that case. The sheriff doesn't want Ellison here in this town writing a book about a recent tragedy that took place where a family was killed and a little girl has gone missing. Ellison tries to argue that him investigating this story may lead to the missing little girl, but the sheriff disagrees and claims the girl isn't missing, that she is dead. He then tells Ellison that his investigation is just a waste of his time, just like his last two books.
Yeah, this cop was really upset about this book that apparently freed somebody. As if there's not like a whole judicial system, like one writer raising a theory that obviously other people probably had, but is the reason this guy got out of prison. Like that's not how it works. Somebody doesn't write a book with a theory.
There's a lot of failures there.
Yeah, calls it the whole judicial system to collapse. They're like, oh God, there's a book. We gotta release this guy.
So after a few moments of Ellison and the officer trading verbal blows at each other, they agree to disagree, and the officer hints at something that we don't really understand yet, but I'm just gonna say it now and get it out of the way. He is referring to Ellison and his family moving into the home where the murders occurred. So basically, he is writing a book about an unsolved murder that took place in the house that he is now currently living in. That murder is the one we see with the tree in the beginning, and to make matters worse, no, his family does not know that they now live in a murder house.
It's not a murder house. It didn't happen in the house. It happened in the backyard. That's a strong selling point later on in the movie. As if that makes a difference.
Tracy actually asked him, "We didn't move a few houses down from a crime scene again, did we? If this has happened before," because she mentions, this kind of happened before, and this is a concern of hers, you would think that she would Google each house Ellison wants to move into.
Yep, I blame her.
Yeah.
If this has happened in the past, I mean, just at least put a little bit more than a
blind faith?
one sentence question.
After they've already moved there.
Yeah. So it's
too late.
Not too late.
He does tell Tracy that he promises that they didn't move down the street from a crime scene, which technically he's not lying.
That is the truth.
Next up, we see Ellison head up into the attic to store some boxes, but when he opens the door, he finds one lone box sitting there. As he approaches the box, he discovers it's being guarded by a fairly large scorpion. He then kills the bug and pulls the lid off to find an old Super 8 camera, a few reels of film. Each roll of film has one sentence label that doesn't really sound important, but we discover later on that it has more of a meaning. A very intrigued Ellison then grabs the box, brings it downstairs, and joins his family for dinner.
Do you know what state this takes place in?
Actually, I don't. I don't know. I don't recall them ever mentioning where this is.
Yeah, it kind of looks like somewhere up north. But yeah, either way, I guess it doesn't really matter the state. If I am in my attic and I see a scorpion, that's not a good sign. Scorpions don't normally live in attics. The scorpion does end up being kind of important later on in the movie. Yeah, this should have been your first bad sign. You got scorpions in your attic. Who the fuck says that?
I don't know. We see at the dinner table that Ellison's career as a true crime writer has caused a little tension amongst the family. His teenage son Trevor is very interested in the crimes his dad investigates, but Tracy shuts that shit down quick. She tells Ellison to make sure he keeps his office locked this time to avoid the kids from seeing murder-related evidence. Speaking of family tension, later on when the kids aren't around, we discover that Tracy wants Ellison to quit writing true crime and go back to fiction. Ellison tells her that this is his last one, that because his last 2 books failed so badly, he just needs one more hit. So you can kind of see as of now, Ellison is kind of a one-hit wonder.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't want this to be his legacy as a writer. So he's going big this time. He's putting it all on the line, even going as far as moving his family into the crime scene itself, which is very, very risky.
I mean, which he's done before.
Well, not in the crime scene before. You know, he would live like down the street from it. But now, I mean, they are like where the shit happened.
Yeah, you can definitely tell this movie is showing you very early on. He was a one-hit wonder. He's chasing that success again. He's chasing the dragon.
Yeah,
trying to get that high again. And you get the sense that pretty early on that success might be a little higher of a priority than anything else.
He's like the true crime version of the band Chumbawamba. They did the I Get Knocked Down, but I Get Up Again song. I don't think they ever had another hit after that.
Yeah,
Nobody knows any other songs by them.
I didn't even, when you said that, it
Take some time.
I was trying to figure out who that was. I knew the name, but I couldn't figure out what song it was. That's how unfamous they got after that.
Now that song is mega famous, but like hardly nobody knows who sang it. But yeah, I remember that it got really big and they put it in the Home Alone 3. Yeah, they just like played. Their biggest fan just listens to that one song on repeat. Tracy then tells him that even though she fully supports him, this is the last time she is doing this. If things go south like last time, she is taking the kids and leaving Ellison. So we don't get a lot of detail about his last book, except for the fact that he caused a convicted murderer to walk free, but obviously it was pretty bad and really hard on the family.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if fully support him would be the word that she should use.
I mostly support you.
Yeah. I fully support you so much that if this is not successful, I'm taking the kids and leaving. Like, that's not really full support, is it?
It's, 90%.
She should have been like, I fully supported you 3 books ago, but now I'm kind of at the end of my fucking rope and I'm taking the kids.
So next we see Ellison in his murder office, which I just want to say, I love this office. It's fantastic. This show needs an office like that.
Yeah. Yeah, if we could have a studio like the office in this.
It's got bookshelves built into the wall with like
lights.
Display lights.
Yeah.
It has like this big curved pinup board with lights and like a bench attached to it. The room itself's fucking huge. Like oh man, it's great. I love it.
I wonder what the family did who lived here prior. Like,
yeah, what'd they do with that room?
Yeah, I don't know. Who built this awesome office?
It's awesome.
What'd they do? Were they also a true crime writer?
We could have all like our horror movie stuff like all on the display shelves with the lights already in it and all that. Man, yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, totally would fucking have an office like this. I like this office better than we see another office of his, which is like way grander. I like this one better.
Yeah, this one's dark. It's got that really dark, and it's made to be dark with all the lights, and all the built-in lights and stuff. God, I could only imagine all the horror movie, all the busts and stuff set up. Be a good studio.
But anyway, we get a couple shots of some photos of the family we seen in the opening of the movie, and we see that there are actually 5 members of this family. A husband, a wife, a son, and 2 daughters, with one of the little girls vanishing after the murder. Ellison then grabs the box containing the camera and film canisters and sets them up to be projected onto his wall. He then cuts the lights, grabs a notepad, and hits play. So this reel starts out showing a dad and son throwing the football, just kind of your average American pastime. And we then see the mother and daughter doing some gardening. And overall, this looks like a pretty happy family. We then jump to them having a nice afternoon picnic in their backyard. Everybody seems happy when, boom, we cut to a shot of the family restrained with the ropes around their necks that we saw in the opening. We then see Ellison begin to realize that what he is watching is footage of the actual murder. After a brief moment, the tree limb on the other side begins to fall, and we once again watch the family struggle to breathe as they lift into the air. A few seconds later, the reel ends and Ellison tries to take in what he just saw. He then pours himself a drink, gets himself together, and restarts the reel.
And but one thing that I think I'd say makes this whole movie, takes it to another level, is Ethan Hawke's ability to actually sell like the fear when he's watching these, like the shock and fear, especially with some of the later films they show, like how fucking creeped out and scared that he is. He really sells that really good. And I hope this isn't killing your facts at the end, but whenever they did this movie, the writer and director, or the writer, actually really wanted to start with the first thing they wanted to do was all the Super 8 stuff. And the studio fought them super hard on this because it was apparently really expensive to make. It was the most expensive thing for them to do in the movie. And they ended up getting their way. They fought the studio, got their way, and they shot this first. So when Ethan Hawke is sitting down watching these, this is the actual first time he's ever seen these, which is part of what makes his reaction so good. And that was a really big selling point to him, to get him to do the movie, is how good his reactions had to be. They actually compared it to Shelley Duvall in The Shining. The way her fear is what really makes that movie. Like that whole end scene, like how she sells the fear so good, it amplifies the movie. I think he was able to do that very well.
Yeah, Ethan Hawke, man, is a really good actor. I mean, even in the not scary parts in this movie, like one of the really good examples of how good he is the argument he has later with his wife, where they're just doing the kind of regular argument and she's kind of just hitting him and hitting him and hitting him. And he finally just blows up. I mean, he just blows up. And I mean, he's just really good at acting, I guess.
He
can turn it on.
He is really good. And actually, Jason Blum had tried to get him to be in a couple different movies, and he had turned them down. They said, seen an interview with him and Jason Blum, and Jason Blum said he had actually turned down quite a few scripts that they sent to him trying to get him to be a lead in. And finally, after so many of them, he got this script, and he was like, yeah, this is it. This is the one I'm going to do.
Yeah,
it worked out.
They were eventually able to, years later, get him for The Black Phone.
Yeah. Didn't think about that. He was also in The Purge.
Yeah,
but the first Purge,
all Blumhouse movies.
I can't remember. They didn't mention it in the interview I seen with them, so I can't remember. I thought the original Purge was out prior to this.
Yeah, I think it's 2009.
But that is a less of a horror movie. That is a horror movie, but it's kind of a suspense action movie almost. So I think this one's more of a straight up horror movie. And Ethan Hawke said that he doesn't really do many horror movies. And he said why a lot of actors are really shy away from some horror movies is that a lot of the emotions that you would generally show, or in his words, he used the word sexy, like when you're playing vulnerable, that can be attractive to people. Or you're playing tough, that's attractive to people. But nobody's attracted to you being scared. And it's a really hard emotion to portray. And he killed it in this.
Yeah. So later on, while walking through the dark house, Ellison hears a noise coming from the hallway. He then goes to investigate, where at first he finds nothing. He then hears something in the laundry room, and when he opens the door, he finds a half-asleep Ashley who is looking for the bathroom. He then heads back to his office and pulls another reel from the box. He quickly loads it into the projector, cuts the lights, and hits play. So in this one, we see another average family spending the day fishing and playing by a lake. Everything seems normal and fine. They got themselves a little grill going. They got some chairs. Looks like they may be camping. And we also see that by the car and the clothes they're wearing, this one takes place around the late 70s. So obviously, this most likely is not connected to the recent backyard murders that he's investigating. So once again, we do a quick cut to some ominous shit going on, where we see that the car that was parked by the lake is now wrapped in chains, and it seems to be very late in the night. We can see that some of the family members are tied up and gagged in the car. Then the camera kind of pans through one of the windows where we can see a couple big metal cans of gas laying next to the family members. The camera then films around the car again, showing some kind of symbol or drawing on the hood. We also get some really creepy music playing here, along with that old audio static that you normally hear on old tapes.
Yeah, the music is what really stood out to me here. It sounds like an older song's lyrics. It's really hard with all the distorted, they just distort the sound so much. It's hard to really pick up on any one thing that you're hearing. But a lot of static, a lot of distortion, but you can hear lyrics playing in the background. You just can't make out what it is, but there's also screaming going along with that and just weird clicking. I don't know who thought of putting this together, but it fucking works so well.
No, these are songs from Norwegian black metal bands that they actually had to hunt down and purchase the right to put them in the movie, to pay the band to put them in the movie.
Yeah, but is the songs, did they purchase them and then go in and just use them and actually add a bunch of stuff to it and make it creepier?
No.
Or is it the actual... That's the actual
That's
thing.
The actual song. Yeah.
That's weird. That's weird because I know you had mentioned that you had found out something cool with the Super 8 footage, the audio in the back. So I actually rewound that part and listened really close to see what I could hear. Just closed my eyes and tried to see what I could gather of it. And I could hear lyrics in the back, but not clear enough to hear what they're saying, but also screaming going on, like a woman screaming, and a lot of clicking and just distorted audio.
No, the person who did the music for this literally went through and just kind of looked for black metal songs that just didn't have a singer. They didn't have lyrics. They wanted these songs that were just instruments and that sounded creepy. And I don't know a lot about.
It's got to be an intro or a creepy intro to a song or something.
Well,
there's no guitars or anything.
They put some of these songs on the soundtrack for this. So, but yeah, they had to actually pay the bands to, and luckily, a lot of the bands weren't they're mega huge bands, so it wasn't super expensive, and they were open to it. But yeah, they went through a ton of black metal instrumental songs to find the right feel. So
Yeah,
awesome.
that's weird. If that's not an intro, I thought to me they went in and they had highly modified the songs to make them almost unrecognizable that there was even a song. But yeah, regardless, it's really creepy.
So the camera then stops directly in front of the car when suddenly we see an object on fire thrown at the vehicle from behind whoever is filming. The car immediately goes up in flames. The sight of this sends Ellison into a nervous panic where he quickly discovers he has drank his whole glass of whiskey. We then jump back to the car where the inside is just this big ball of flames, and then the reel runs out, causing Ellison to breathe a sigh of relief. Ellison then calls the police, fully intending to turn over the reels as evidence, and while he is on hold, he sees a copy of his book, Kentucky Blood, and decides, fuck that, he's gonna pull this string and see what unravels. So, I guess from his point of view, it kind of looks like maybe he has discovered footage from a serial killer that stretches back decades. And this could be massively huge. Exactly what he needs.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely report this, but in his position, with his whole entire career and now his family on the line too, I mean, how would you report it in that instance? Like you just stumbled into something that is going to be the biggest book written in the last decade. Like you literally broke an entire case and connected all these other cases that nobody had suspected. Yeah, how do you report that? Plus that asshole cop, man, I just wouldn't trust him.
Well, one thing I didn't really pick up on until I did this watch was he also has the mindset where he thinks the killer came back to the house after the murders, like since he's bought it, and left the box just for him. Because he even says, like, why would he come back? Why would he bring this here? And obviously he assumes, if it was there before, the cops would have taken
Yeah,
it.
what?
So
Yeah, my thought was, if you didn't think that, you would have to be thinking of a cover up at this point, because the way that cop tries to get him to leave and not investigate this, and was like just dead set on that girl's dead. Nobody's gonna find her. She's dead. You're wasting your time. And then to go into the house that the police went into after these murders and find all these reels with all these murders that were connected, how would they not have found these? So if you didn't have that mindset, you still wouldn't report it, because you at that point you would be thinking this has to be a cover up.
So he then grabs the box and pulls another reel titled Pool Party 86, and he once again quickly loads it into the projector and takes his seat. But as soon as he hits play, he hears another noise from somewhere in the house and goes to investigate, believing it to be his daughter looking for the bathroom again. He calls Ashley's name but gets no answer. He then hears the sound of a door opening somewhere in the home. He then checks Ashley's room but finds her sound asleep, and while quietly searching for the source of the noise, he starts to hear something in the attic. Before he gets a chance to go up, he notices a large box placed at the end of the hallway. He slowly walks towards it, and right before he gets close enough to inspect it, we see the box slowly open from the top as his son Trevor does like a fucking creepy contortionist move, leaning over backwards with his arms stretched out, eyes and mouth wide open, and neck veins bulging. Before Ellison can get to him, Trevor lets out a loud, blood-curdling scream. He sounds like a fucking demon or banshee or something.
It sounds like you need to take this kid to the fucking doctor. Like, if this was my kid, I'd be super creeped out. Be like, get in the car right now. We're taking you somewhere.
Ellison runs over and lifts him out of the box and into his arms, screaming for him to wake up. He then starts running through the house, and we see at this point Trevor's screams have awoken the whole family, who are running out to see what is wrong. As Ellison runs for the door, we see Tracy open it for him as they both take Trevor into the front yard. Ellison is yelling for Trevor to wake up and look at the stars, when suddenly the screaming stops and Trevor wakes up confused as to why he is outside. Ellison then reveals that Trevor is prone to night terrors, to which Tracy remarks that she thought these were over, with Ellison then blaming it on the stress of the move. He's doing everything he can to avoid this fucking with his possibly massive serial killer book.
Yeah. You know he's already thinking like, God damn it, she's gonna blame this on the
Thinking she's
the
gonna
book.
pull the plug at any moment.
Yeah.
After things calm down a little, Ellison informs Tracy that he wants to tell her something important, and after a brief pause, he decides not to snitch himself out and just tells her he is really sorry. Damn, what a first night at the new house. You done found murder tapes, possibly discovered a generational serial killer, and your kid Circus O'Laid out of a fucking cardboard box possessed. That's one hell of a first night.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, you probably shouldn't move into a house where unsolved super creepy murders happened.
Honestly, though, I would have 100%, before I even moved in, just assumed this house was at least haunted by the people who died.
Yeah.
Like, if my first night I'm hearing noises in the attic, I would be like, well, duh, it's fucking haunted. You know,
Yep.
I would not be surprised by any of this.
Agreed. I wouldn't even go up in the attic.
Nope, wouldn't even fuck with it.
Nope. Be like, okay, well, that's either scorpions or ghosts. We already know there's scorpions up there.
Yeah.
So
And we
know
assume there's ghosts.
Yeah. Anytime a whole family is murdered,
Probably ghosts.
probably 100% ghosts.
The next morning, Tracy takes the kids to school and informs Ellison that she is going to explore the new town, giving him some time alone at the house to write his book. As soon as they leave, we see Ellison go straight to his office, close the blinds, and hit play on Pool Party 86.
You can do. He's been waiting to watch this.
Yep.
He's been thinking about it nonstop.
Thank God. I'm surprised you didn't come out of the room and be like, don't you think you should take the kids to school early today since it's their first day? I want to get there good and early.
Surprised she didn't leave and he wasn't like, fucking thank God.
Yeah. So once again, we see another all-American family hanging out, enjoying each other's company, just playing around in their backyard pool. One thing about this tape that I noticed, though, is whoever is recording is doing it from behind the bushes, and the family doesn't ever acknowledge the camera, which is different from the other ones we've seen.
It's also one thing the first time I seen this movie that really threw me off. Because you're thinking at this point in the movie, like, who's videoing this?
You think there's a killer.
They're the killer. Whoever the killer is, clearly is the one with the videotape. And you think you're watching him spying on this family that he's going to kill. And it's just kind of another red herring to throw you into the thought process of there being this generational serial killer.
So just as the family sits down at the patio table to enjoy some lunch, we cut to nighttime. The camera pans around, showing the same backyard with the pool as before, but this time we see that each family member has been duct taped to a lounge chair, which, if you don't know, are these adjustable chairs that you always see set up around a pool. A lot of people lay them all the way down and soak up some sun rays.
Yeah, I feel like every teenage girl or girl in her early 20s had one of these in the late 90s.
You know,
remember those colorful ones?
Yeah. You know what's funny is, like, when I was writing this, I was like, what's that? What the fuck is that kind of chair called? I had to look it up. I had no idea that
it's called a lounge chair.
It's called a lounge chair. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're all strapped in where they can't move, and the chairs are all set up on the edge of the pool. And as the camera zooms back in, we see that the chairs are actually facing backwards, so their heads are closer to the water rather than their feet like it normally would be. And there are ropes tied to each chair. Once the camera pans past all of the family members, we see one of the ropes pulled tight, causing the chair to slide into the pool, with the woman who is strapped to it go head first underwater. She kind of lands in the shallow end apparently, because even though her head is on the bottom of the pool, we can still see her feet just barely sticking out of the water, and you can tell by how they are moving that she is struggling to breathe. After a few seconds, we then start seeing one by one each chair pulled into the pool until all 4 family members are laying at the bottom drowning. This would be my fucking nightmare. This
Yeah.
is the one kill that I see and I'm like this would terrify me.
Yeah. I feel like it being at night would make it even worse too. It being dark, you in a pool tied to a chair underwater, like, man, that's bad. I don't know. I don't know what would be worse. That or being set on fire in a car. I'm sure being set on fire is much more painful, but and I can't say this for sure. I'm not like a medical examiner, but I feel like drowning would there'd be a lot more panic, a lot more time to panic where you're holding your breath, knowing that you're going to die, as opposed to, especially with the fire in this movie, it's gasoline everywhere. Everything goes up pretty quick. Yeah, this is pretty awful. One thing that I never noticed watching this movie is this is the first time we get to see there's a picture of this glowing green liquid sitting on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And I never noticed it this early in the movie before. And I think it's because of the scene you're about to get to, the really creepy standing on the bottom of the pool scene. But yeah, never picked it up this early in the movie. But this ends up being very, very important to the story.
Yeah, this watch was actually the first time I picked up like the glowing stuff in general. Like I remember it from, later on we see it's in a cup, but there's a couple spots that I noticed it that I had never seen it before.
Yeah, and then another thing so far, and I think it's what makes these snuff films just so bad. All these kills are set up in a way where these people die really slow death. Like the first one, they're hung on the tree and they're literally strangled to death. The second one, they are set on fire inside of a car and now they are all drowned in a pool. And it sets it up where these are all very unique ways to kill multiple people at once. But they're all set up where somebody could easily kill all these people and get it on film. Like it almost seems like it's set up for somebody to be able to film them and kill all these people at once, which kind of makes sense when you find out, in the end of the movie. But yeah, very, very unique, very awful ways that they came up with to kill these people.
The camera then starts filming the water when suddenly we can see a creepy all-black figure with a white painted face just casually standing at the bottom of the pool, watching the family members die. After a moment, the creature then looks up and right into the camera, scaring the shit out of Ellison. He then rewinds it and pauses so he can get a better look at the figure, and as he moves in closer to get a better look, the film catches fire and the image disappears. So after a bit of research, Ellison is able to repair the film reel, allowing him to record the images onto his digital camera, where he can then load it into an editing software app on his laptop.
Very, very interesting point about this. So I actually seen somebody make this point, and I was able to go back and catch it. So when he pieces together the film, and he puts it back together. So the Buggle, which is Mr. Boogie, the main guy, him standing at the bottom of the pool, which is the first time we really get to see him. And I will say shout out to the guy who went through all those pictures, because in my opinion, he's super fucking creepy looking. That whole pool scene stands out. It's probably one of the things that stood out to me the most when I think back at this movie of how creepy the standing on the bottom of the water is. But he looks over at the camera right before it sets on fire. He turns his head very slow and sets it on fire. So this is actually him. He is setting it on fire from inside the picture. And a really good proof of this is when they piece together the film, the only thing he gets is the shot right before he starts turning his head, which means from that point on, when he turned his head and started burning the film, everything else after that got burned. Thought that was really interesting.
I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, that this pagan deity really is kind of a hint later on in the movie how he can actually move in pictures. And even if it's a picture of the past, he can do things in the present through those images.
So later that night, Ellison puts on another unwatched reel named Sleepy Time 1998, cuts off the lights, and settles in for another disturbing family murder. In this one, we start off with the camera walking through a dark house. You can tell that a family definitely lives here. It's your pretty average American home, and it appears that the occupants are in bed for the night. We then head upstairs to the bedrooms where we see the members of the family have once again been restrained by duct tape and been placed on the bed, except for the dog. Apparently, he doesn't go after dogs. The camera then gets real close to the father, like up to his face. We see that he is awake and struggling to get free when suddenly a butcher knife from the kitchen is placed on his neck, and we cut to Ellison's reaction as the man's neck is sliced open. I love this shot because you actually get to see the kill in the reflection of his glasses, and I think it's just a really cool cinematography kind of trick shot.
Yeah, this has got to be the world's sharpest knife. It's the slowest throat cuts I've ever seen. It just cuts right through those throats. This is one of the few that we actually get to see some gore, and we actually get to see the people actually their reactions to as they're dying. Like we get up close on their face.
We then see the same exact neck slash with the mom, where afterwards the camera then moves to another bedroom where we see a young boy that has been restrained. Right before the killer puts the knife to the kid's neck, Ellison looks away in horror, opting to take a big drink of whiskey instead. Once the boy is dead, the film reel ends. Ellison then uses his computer to go frame by frame of the video, where he discovers the weird symbol from the other film painted on the hallway wall. Ellison then does a Google search of the crime, where he discovers that not only does this case resemble the one he is working on when it comes to a murdered family, but there is also a young child missing from the home. While reading about this missing boy, Ellison begins hearing sounds from the attic again, when suddenly the lights go out. While using a flashlight to look around, we hear a loud bang followed by running footsteps. This prompts Ellison to pull down the ladder and head up to the attic. And while up there, he doesn't find anything interesting at first, but he soon spots a black shoebox lid that seems to be moving on its own. He cautiously walks over and opens the box, only to discover a fucking snake under it. He's got a fucking zoo in his attic.
Yep, scorpion, now a snake.
Yeah. Next, an elephant. Once the snake slithers off, Ellison notices there is something written on the box lid. He picks it up and we see it is a drawing of the tree murders with a stick man standing next to it, labeled Mr. Boogie. Next to that, we see another drawing of the pool party killings, also with Mr. Boogie, and so on and so on. So basically, we got these kid drawings of these murders with this murderer whose name is Mr. Boogie, which, if you haven't caught on, stands for Boogeyman. Also, one thing I want to point out here is the attention to detail. Because if you notice, the drawings are all different. They were obviously drawn by different people with different styles and skill sets.
Yeah, at this point, if I was him, I would be fucking convinced at paranormal. Like, there would be no doubt in my mind now that there is not only paranormal shit in this house, but somehow this case is somehow fucking connected to the paranormal. For one, a snake being in your attic, I mean, that happens, but how would this snake have gotten under a box? Like, it can't dig. It's on a solid floor. But then it just so happens to be under the box that is connected to this crime, and it is a drawing layout of all the killings that the police somehow didn't come across. So obviously this has been left here. Unless you think the killer actually came into your house
And put the lid just for me.
Yeah, and then did it like right then because it hasn't been there before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be like, no, this is getting a little fucking weird for my taste. This would be the point where I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna take what I got and write the book somewhere else.
Yeah. While leaving the attic, Ellison falls to the floor and into the hallway, slamming into the ground and knocking himself out. Next, we see a paramedic bandaging up his leg as he speaks to a sheriff's deputy. And we find out that this deputy is actually a big fan of Ellison's writing. He asks for a signed copy and Ellison gladly provides him with one. And while they are in his office, the deputy offers to help Ellison out with information about the murders. Ellison agrees and asks him to look up information on the Sleepy Time 1998 and the 79 family barbecue murders. The deputy eagerly agrees and heads back to the station.
Good old Deputy So-So. I don't think he gets a name throughout this
doesn't.
whole movie.
He
He's
does
just
not.
credited as Deputy.
Yep, Deputy so-and-so. So the next day, Ellison is reviewing all the films on his computer when he starts noticing the tall, dark figure with the white face in the background of all the murders. Which is odd because if this is the killer, A, he doesn't seem to age, and B, who is holding the camera and doing the killings? So while he is looking into these photos of Mr. Boogie, he gets a call from the deputy who informs him that he found the info that he wanted. Turns out that these killings did indeed happen like they show in the films. They have occurred over decades. Each one has a child that went missing, and the police have no idea who did it. And also, turns out that the families are connected by previous addresses. Later that night, Ellison gets awoken by the sound of the projector running. He gets up and goes to investigate, where he finds the film playing in his office, but finds no one in there. He then goes to his kitchen window looking at the tree in the backyard when he suddenly spots Mr. Boogie in the bushes. He grabs a bat and goes out to look, where he finds his son Trevor in the bush, sleepwalking from another night terror. After he brings him inside, he goes back to get his bat and flashlight, where he encounters a vicious dog waiting. And while trying to back away slowly, we see the ghosts of 5 dead children standing behind him. The next day, the deputy shows up to the house, where he explains that despite Ellison's downplaying of the murders being connected, he knows what's going on, but he is willing to help Ellison investigate without getting law enforcement involved. So this is like a first time in the movie that we really see supernatural.
Yeah. For one, I wanna go back just a little bit. I thought they did a really good job hiding Mr. Boogie throughout these Super 8 films. So I didn't rewind and watch them at the end. I meant to. And every time I watch this movie, I forget to look for them when they're showing them the first time. But do you know if he's actually in the background of when we get to see these for the first time?
I actually never really looked.
Yeah, I hope so. That'd be really cool if he was like hidden back there and we just, only somebody with a really sharp eye would catch it. But I've never noticed him in any of the original. And like I said, I always forget when I watch this movie to look for him or where to look for him at.
It's totally plausible, because with all the film grain, and you're really not looking at the background of these tapes, you're really looking at what's going on, because you're anticipating something creepy is going to happen. Because one of the things I forgot to mention earlier that I really think adds to the creepiness of the tapes is there's no sound.
Yeah, that I agree.
If there was no creepy, instrumental playing and we get that crackly fuzz, there's no sound recording of any of this happening, which makes it, for some reason, just makes it like really unsettling.
Yeah, I don't know if it makes it feel more real to me for some reason. I don't know if there was sound on old Super 8 film and they just went back and added the sound in after. I mean, you just couldn't I guess video like a family having a conversation. But I don't think that's the case. I don't know. It just makes it feel so much real, especially like the lawnmower one we get to see coming up. that one feels just so much more creepy without any sound added to it.
I've seen some old, like other times I've seen old Super 8 stuff and there was no sound to
Yeah.
it. And I think that the situation was like you had to have a separate microphone to catch the sound. And most people didn't have that. They mostly just, wanted, it was like pictures, like having
Yeah.
Polaroid pictures. You just really want to capture what the memory looked like. So sound wasn't like a big thing back then, but
Yeah, and I like thinking back, you don't normally hear sound on those early videos, and I think that might be what makes it so much creepier.
yeah.
So I would definitely agree with the no sound thing. I think that's big. I think that completely changes the feel of the Super 8 footage altogether. But yeah, back to what you were saying, it's the first time we see anything paranormal. I always thought the dog was a weird place thing. And I kind of realized watching it this time that the dog, I think they put the dog in there to show that the dog can see these ghosts, but obviously he can't. Like they're obviously ghosts. I did think it was kind of strange. Also, he kills me with this baseball bat. He's like running around with this baseball bat like it's a Glock. Like this is his fucking home defense Glock.
He's gonna keep away a 70-year-old serial killer. I mean, if he's really 70, I guess you could do it with a bat. But
no, if you've seen all this stuff and you got to be somewhat convinced that there's some paranormal shit going on at this point. Even if you don't believe in it, you got to be like, okay, this isn't right. If I seen this fucking entity on a video and then I seen it outside, would not be taking the baseball bat outside.
honestly, if I ran into Bagul outside in my backyard, I would probably not hit him with the bat, or even if I had a gun, I would literally probably just shit all over my pants. It'd be like an episode of South Park. I just wouldn't be able to stop. He's legitimately scary.
Yeah, I like even with a Glock, I don't think I'd take my Glock out there.
The Glock would just shit. It would just start shitting bullets out of the handle.
Just start jamming up.
Yeah.
Like I haven't even shot it yet. How do I have a fucking smokestack jam?
So Ellison agrees to bring him into the loop and takes him to his office to show him all of the evidence. The deputy is kind of skeptical and believes it is connected to some kind of occult group, and he informs Ellison that he should call Professor Jonas, an occult crime expert at the university. Later on, we've seen Ellison grab the last unwatched reel titled Lawn Work 86. And he places it into the projector and straps in for whatever fucked up shit he is about to see next. So this one starts off with the camera standing outside of a nice home. It appears to be nighttime and we see the family sitting in the living room watching TV. We watch the parents and the kids through the windows for a bit before cutting to the killer getting out a lawnmower from the garage. Now, this is shot really cool because the camera is like sitting on the handlebars of the mower and it's obviously outside, so it is pitch black. The camera does have a pretty shitty flashlight on it and it is pointed directly in front of the mower. So to paint a picture, all we can see here is the top of the mower engine and then like a foot on the ground like in front of the mower. Everything else is just black. And it being shot like this is why I think that this kill turns out so well.
Yeah, this is one. It's a fucking gruesome kill. Like we don't get to see the gore from it, but for me, I just didn't expect it.
That's
Like,
what I'm saying.
Yeah, they show
it's because everything's black except for this, little bit of space in front of this mower.
A big reason I didn't expect it either is it starts out showing the family being videoed at night. And it shows them being videoed from outside, from somebody's outside videoing through the window into the house. So in your mind, when this mowing scene's taking place, you think that the family's still in the house. Like just in my mind, I figured, I didn't see a lady be tied up about to get ran over by a mower.
Yeah, that's why this one is different than the other ones, because we get a lot of like kind of playing around with the family being restrained, the camera in their face kind of thing. And this one, not at all.
Yeah, this one's much different in the sense that all the other ones are extremely unsettling, slow, like you're watching somebody slowly die a horrible death, and everything's just real quiet other than the creepy sound that they add quietly in the background of them. This is one actually they even capitalized on this. They use a jump scare at this one, and it's the only one that, although it's the Super 8 footage, it's a much different scare. It's a sudden scare as opposed to a drawn out, just super unsettling. I did want to bring back to where the Deputy Soso brings up, this is right after he brings up that the family's being drugged. Essentially, he checked the toxicology and the family members are being drugged. Do you have that right? I think you went over that, but I'm not sure. But anyway, he mentions right before this that the family members are being drugged. And as much as Ethan watches these movies.
You mean Ellison?
As much as Ellison watches these movies, the green liquid that's in almost every one of them, when I found out that they had all been drugged by some unknown drug, I'm surprised he's not doing a ton of research into what this green glowing liquid is. He kind of ignores this throughout the entire time.
I don't blame him because, I mean, he thinks he's on the verge of discovering the serial killer who's done these terrible murders, for what, 50 years or so? He's much more focused on, let me get all the because he's not working on one murder. Like, he's trying to work on 4 or 5 here. And I mean, he's only known about it for 2 days. So
yeah,
I don't blame him for not getting to that yet.
He has taken in a lot in 2 days, but he has watched these over and over again. You would think he would have caught that's strange. It's this green glowing liquid. What the fuck is that? I was thinking whenever because it's kind of weird, this Officer Soso that he has just met. This whole thing's only been 2 days. He just met this cop yesterday, and he's going to sit down and show him all of this evidence of this story. And this guy's a cop, so there's a possibility this guy could take this information back to the police station. But then I thought about, man, could you imagine discovering all this in the span of 2 days and not even being able to tell your wife or family about it? How hard it would be to keep this in, how good it would feel to share this with somebody, and show somebody this crazy shit that's going on.
Yeah. Oh, so back to the kill. I forgot we're in the middle of a kill. So we see the mower moving. At first, you can tell it's, on the grass, but then it ends up on the sidewalk or the driveway. You can't really tell. It's hard to really see because, like I said, it's dark. But it's just cruising along, and it goes back into the grass. And after a few seconds of this, all of a sudden, the mower just runs over the head of a woman who is lying in the grass tied up. The sight of this scares Ellison so bad, he jumps up and gasps, immediately turning off the projector. Later on, we see Ellison get a FaceTime call from Professor Jonas, and Jonas says that based on the photos Ellison sent him beforehand, he is familiar with the symbols we see in each video. He then says that these are ancient symbols associated with the worship of a very, very old pagan deity. His name is Bagul, and he is known as the Eater of Children. And he requires the souls of kids in order to survive. He apparently uses tricks or lies to lure the children away from the physical world and traps them in his netherworld. Professor Jonas believes that this is a cult doing the killings and not the act of just one man. After the call, we see a clearly freaked out Ellison pack the projector and all the reels into a box and lock his office door, where he then goes to bed. He is then later awoken again by the sound of the projector running, and he again goes to investigate. And of course, he finds no one in his office. Ellison then begins walking around the house looking for a possible intruder, but once again, he finds nothing. But we, the viewer, see a bunch of dead-looking ghost children that obviously he can't see, running around him, basically kind of fucking with him. And after not finding anything, Ellison decides to check on his kids before going back to bed. After he closes Ashley's door, we see that she is fake sleeping and is really awake when the camera then pans down her wall and it reveals that she has painted a picture of the family hanging from the tree in the backyard with Mr. Boogie watching. Honestly, she did a pretty good painting of Bagul, if you ask me. That was pretty good for her age.
Yeah, that's
Very nice portrait.
That's really good looking.
Yeah.
That could have been the cover of the movie. This is actually significant here as to where this is leading, because I mean we obviously know this deity fucks with kids, and so far throughout this movie, it is the son that seems to be the one that is being affected. He's having these night terrors. They find him outside at one point. Like, multiple things happen. This is really the first thing with their daughter. This is kind of the reveal that their daughter is actually the one, probably the chosen one, the one that's being fucked with. But yeah, if I found my daughter painted something like this, knowing what I know and had seen this face, like there's no fucking way I'd stay in this house. Not another second.
So the next day, we find out that Ashley has been speaking to a ghost named Stephanie, who used to live in this house and told Ashley that she was the one Ellison was writing the book about. This, of course, sparks a big argument between Tracy and Ellison, with Tracy believing that Ellison left his office door unlocked, allowing Ashley to learn things about the murder. And this is where Tracy learns that no, they didn't move into a house down the street from a horrible murder scene. They moved into the actual house of the murder scene. I honestly don't know how you bounce back from a lie this big.
No.
It's pretty bad.
He just got louted out by a fucking spirit through his child.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, like, this is a pretty big deal. This isn't a mistake of like you're gonna stay there, 1 or 2 days, like an Airbnb. You literally just made a 30-year commitment with a lot of money to live in a murder house.
Yeah, lying to your wife about that's a tough one.
That's a huge mistake.
That's pretty major. And the fight that follows is very, very realistic. Most wives, I feel like, would have freaked out even harder than this.
Yeah.
But they do have a really realistic back and forth argument. I love when she's like, there's other ways to provide for your family. And he's like, provide for my family how? Teaching or editing textbooks? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, those are both pretty adequate jobs. Like, those are both very respected professions.
He also, man, he really fucks up here. At one point, he says, she's like, you don't have to write books about murders. You can write other stuff. And he says, these books are what keep my life going.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no. So your family doesn't keep you going? Just the promise of fame and success from benefiting from people's horrible tragedy is what keeps you going?
He fucks up a couple times here because he mentions to her, like, the murders didn't happen in the house. And she's like, oh, so this isn't the house. Like, she's like relieved. She's like, oh, so this isn't the house that they were killed in. He's like, no, they were killed in the backyard.
I'm surprised she didn't throw something at him.
Yeah,
with
that is a line that you end up like catching a glass from the table thrown at the wall or something.
Well,
like
that's a trick that, you can pull that off if it's like a kid, like, well, technically, but an actual other adult is like, dude, get the fuck out of here. Like, that's the same thing.
It is disrespectful.
Yeah.
If your adult spouse pulls some shit like that.
Yeah. Like, am I dumb?
And then he talks about it being like his whole legacy. And she literally, she ends this argument with, your kids are your legacy now. And then literally mic drop. Like, what do you come back? You done dug yourself a fucking 10-foot hole.
Fuck them kids.
Like, yeah. How do you come back from that? Well,
no one wants to interview me about my kids. Kentucky Blood is my kid. So later that night, Ellison gets woken up again by the sounds of the projector. He gets up to see what is going on, where he finds the attic door open and hears the projector upstairs. He climbs up the ladder to find the ghost kids watching the films, but this time he sees a much cleaner and closer shot of Bagul, which freaks Ellison out. When then, suddenly, the real Bagul jump scares him, causing him to fall down the ladder. Now, he is finally pushed to his limits and he decides to burn the projector and the film reels. He places it all on the backyard fire pit and sets it ablaze. Tracy then comes out asking what is going on, and Ellison responds, telling her that she was right and they are leaving the house tonight.
Man, imagine if before this, in their argument, like around this time, he had figured out the pattern. And he had to convince his pissed off wife that they had to stay in this house forever, for the rest of their lives.
Yeah,
why
that's true.
Why these evil spirits tried to scare them out of the house forever.
Yeah,
Like she couldn't even leave him and go anywhere. He's like, "You're stuck, bitch.
Like-
You are stuck."
what's worse, living in a murder house or moving to a non-murder house but being murdered, and then it becoming a murder house?
Yeah, you really shit the bed on this one.
Yeah. We then see Tracy gather the kids and a few items and pack the car, and then just like that, they're gone. The whole family driving out of town in the middle of the night. And one thing I don't think I mentioned earlier is that they haven't sold their old house yet. It was on the market, but they still own it, so they're heading back there. So the next day, we see the Oswalds moving back into their old house, which, by the way, their old house is fucking huge.
Yeah.
They went from this like mansion to this little like
You know
ranch
what it
house.
was? You know what it was? It was the office. It was a fucking
Yeah.
nice office.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I gotta have that office.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel bad for the kids. Like, they go from this gigantic house to this tiny house.
Yeah, and you know that this in real life, this secret wouldn't have been held in, because some kids at school, especially the older son, he's old enough where it would have got around. Some
Well, it
kids,
did, because-
kids would have been like, "That is the house that the people were murdered in." Like, you were literally living in the house that all those people were murdered in. Like,
Well, we know that Trevor does the first day of school find out because he draws a picture of it on the chalkboard or whatever. But I don't think he louds
I don't.
his dad out because I think he assumes his mom must know.
Well, I don't think he finds out he lives in the house. I think because his dad's like this sort of famous true crime writer, and I guess everybody in this small town knows that they moved here to investigate this murder. I think that's what he was told about, like the murder and why they were really there, and some kids probably fucking with him about his dad. I don't think that he knew that this was the house, because I feel like he would have said something to the mom.
I would
Because he
feel
doesn't
like
know his dad's lying to his mom about that.
I would feel like it would be damn near impossible for a kid not to tell him at the first day of school.
Well, I mean, the kids might not know where he lives.
Yeah, maybe not. But yeah, everybody is happy to be back at the new house. Seems like the family's doing well. Ellison has decided not to write the book on the murders, and everything seems great. Later that night, Ellison gets an email from Professor Jonas depicting old drawings of Bagul in his other forms, which is a scorpion and a snake, two things Ellison's seen in his attic. He then FaceTimes Jonas, who tells him that after his research into Bagul, he found that there isn't many depictions left because Christians believe that Bagul could use the images to possess people. So if you could destroy the depictions, you could destroy his ability to possess people. Hence, why Bagul made the films. And they especially believe that children that see the images can get possessed pretty quickly. After the call, Ellison immediately deletes all of the computer files of the film, when he then gets a phone call from the deputy, which he ignores. He then brings some stuff up to the attic, where he is shocked to find the box of Super 8 films and the projector. But this time, there is a little package in there that says extended cut versions. Ellison can't help himself and decides to check it out. While he is loading the first film into the projector, he gets another call from the deputy, which he answers this time. And while he drinks a cup of coffee his daughter made, the deputy tells him that after all of his research of the previous murders, he discovered that all the victims lived in the homes of the previous victims before them, which puts the Oswalds in danger because they just moved from the home of the previous murders, aka they're next.
Yeah, Deputy So-So ends up actually solving the case fully and has apparently been trying to call him all day, so he should have answered his fucking phone sooner. I do like this kind of added detail, because Deputy So-So, when you first meet him, he's kind of goofy. Like, he's kind of goofy, he's kind of like Captain Obvious when they're talking about the attic. But he does tell him later on, I have a degree in criminology. So I like that they added that in here because it makes a little more sense of how he was able to actually solve the case. Like, he wasn't just some idiot. Like, he studied true crime. He's got a degree in criminology. But yeah, he definitely should have probably answered those phone calls sooner.
Yeah, big fuck up. I don't know if it would have changed anything because they already moved.
What if you moved back?
But that's what I was wondering. What if they just packed up? And I mean, how fucked up would his wife have been though? Like,
yeah,
I'm not fucking. Well, we have to.
That'd have been a fight. But you know, with your and your kid's life on the line, you need to be like, hey, sorry, we got to live in murder house forever. It's the only way.
We'll build it bigger.
We're guaranteed not to be killed if we stay in this house. If we go anywhere else, we're gonna die. So you kind of pick your poison.
So after the call, Ellison turns on the tape of the tree murders, where this time we see that the missing little girl, she climbs down the tree after sawing the branch, causing her family to die. She then goes over to her dad's dead body, where she pretty much uses it for a swing.
God, her swinging on her hanging dad's foot like she's playing, it's just so creepy.
Yeah.
And it adds a level of like psychological horror. Like, you know,
because you would never see a kid do that. Like, it's such a kid thing, but then it's not because he's dead.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very creepy.
So next we see the young son walk from behind the camera of the car fire, and we pretty much get this with all the kills. We see the kids are the ones responsible. They're the ones doing it.
You think that little shit, that little girl in the raincoat, do you think you think she put that on for the mess that lawnmower was gonna make?
No. Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Buggles like, here, put this on, kid. You're gonna need it.
I mean, I did read about the costumes that they picked because they intentionally, did hairstyles and clothing to match the year that this happened. And they actually specifically mentioned the yellow rain slicker, which apparently was a very popular thing that kids wore at that time.
The first thing I thought was it. It's like the same Curious George yellow fucking rain jacket.
I mean, it's almost possibly like a callback because when you read about them kind of coming up with the idea of Bagul, one of the things they really said that inspired Bagul was actually it. So,
yeah, that's interesting.
And I mean, it likes to eat children. So does Bagul. Maybe they're bros.
Alien spider from outer space, pagan god.
Like, hey, Bagul, do you want to come to the bar with me and drink some kids?
And Bagul shakes his head because he can't talk. Moloch sewed his fucking mouth shut.
Bagul signs. So basically, Bagul is convincing these kids to murder their families in these horrible ways and then taking them to his netherworlds where he feeds on their souls forever. After Ellison watches the last reel, he begins to feel woozy. As he staggers to his desk, he notices some kind of green liquid in his coffee. He sees a note from Ashley that says, "Good night, Daddy," and then he crashes to the floor with foam coming from his mouth. He rolls over to see his daughter Ashley standing there, where she says that she likes the longer versions of the reels, and then everything goes black. Sometime later, Ellison wakes up to find himself restrained on the floor next to a tied-up Tracy and Trevor. Ashley then walks in holding the camera and dragging an axe. She kneels down and says, "Don't worry, Daddy, I will make you famous again."
The most savage, best line of the movie. That's
Yeah.
so awful. Yeah, so good.
She begins recording as she walks closer to Ellison. She places the camera down, getting a good shot of Ellison's face as she raises the axe to kill him. We then get a quick Super 8 shot of Ellison getting killed, and then we get a shot of the hallway of the home with long blood smears down the wall. Ashley then walks into the hallway, dragging the axe beside her and covered in blood. She then picks up the camera and we see Bagul's symbol on the wall. We also see here that she painted pictures on the walls in blood. She then turns the camera around where all of the missing kids that killed their families are walking towards her. We then get a shot of Ashley's blood-soaked hand drawing the murder of the Oswald family on the box lid like we've seen before. And you can see in this drawing that she cut everyone into 3 pieces.
Mm-hmm.
That's overkill.
That's a lot of wax for a kid and an axe, because that's not easy to do. Like the human body is not easy to chop in pieces with an axe. Like it takes some hits.
The head I get, but she cuts them at the torso too.
Yeah.
She separates the torso from the legs.
Think about the cutting space of the end of an axe, and then how many hits that would take, even if you went all the way through the body and every shot. And you're not going to. It's going to take multiple. So, yeah.
What would she have done if Ellison was 400 pounds?
Hopefully Bagul kind of took over and helped her out. That's a lot for a little girl.
Yeah, what if he was just like massively big? Like she wouldn't have been able, wouldn't have worked at all. Once she's done, she walks over to the projector and stares at the ghost kids. And as she moves her head to the side, we see a very creepy looking Bagul standing behind her. He then picks her up and they both vanish.
So one thing I'd never noticed about this is Bagul's hands are dripping
in
the
green
green
liquid.
stuff. So that's obviously, whatever he drugs the family with.
Is it
he
his
comes
splooge?
with built-in drugs. I don't know. It's like his hands are coming. It's like,
well, he got it on his hands,
coming.
man. He just shoots ropes.
Yeah, that's a lot of ropes. But
here, little kid, make sure that you put some of this Bagul juice in your parents' fucking drinks tonight.
Yeah, you don't want to taste Bagul's protein shake.
No,
I promise.
No, man.
I absolutely fucking love the ending of this movie.
Oh, hold on. We're almost there. We then see the box with the projector sitting in the attic again, but this time we see a reel that is labeled House Painting 2012. What a fucking title.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
And that is the end of Sinister.
All the titles for the Super 8 movies were really...
Yeah, they sound like they're nothing, but then when you watch it, you're like, oh...
Yeah, I fucking love the end of this movie. The twist end of it being the daughter that is killing them. I remember the first time I watched that. I mean, it's a super, super grim. And you know how I am about the grim endings. I love the grim endings. And I put this up there with some of the best grim endings. Now, as a parent watching this, the idea of your own child being the one about to axe you to death, that's about as psychologically horrifying as anything I could think of.
Well, another reason why that's so fucking like mind-blowing is you can almost see, angsty Trevor maybe doing it.
Yeah.
But the sweet little
daughter.
Girl, like,
and she's even sweet in like calling him daddy right before she kills him, which it makes it even. So I said that line's like so savage, but so like just creepy, because it's like your daughter talking to you, being sweet, but she's about to fucking axe you to death, and and
then use your blood as painting pictures on the wall.
Yeah, it is literally just about as psychologically terrifying as I could think of. The psychologically scary ending combined with like the unsettling scariness and creepiness of the Super 8 snuff found footage, and then the jump scares added in with that. It just scares on so many different levels. And I think that's what makes this movie work so good. And it doesn't surprise me. I actually seen the list that you referenced in the beginning of the test they did on the most scary horror movies that they're in. They did it based off a heart rate. And I remember the first time I read it and I seen Sinister, I'm like, that's good, but that's definitely not the scariest movie. But I could see how that caused on average higher heart rate increases, because they scare on so many different levels. Like most movies have one way they scare. It's either a psychological horror movie or it's a slasher. We get so many different ways in this movie, and it works really well.
Yeah, I think the ending of this movie is one of the things that puts it over the top, because I mean, honestly, like I seen this movie so long ago, but I really wish that I could have wrote my thoughts down about the first time I seen it. And one thing I have always remembered about seeing it for the first time is being really surprised, because I thought it was Trevor. I thought it was going to be Trevor that did it. And just being really floored by who the actual killer ended up being. And then another thing was, you get a big star like Ethan Hawke, you really wouldn't suspect that basically he's going to get his head chopped off by his like 7-year-old daughter. I didn't think they were going to go there, because
He's the star of the movie.
yeah, I mean that, we've already had so many like fucked up kills, and then he kind of dropped the book, and it was like, most characters would keep pushing until shit went to hell, but he realized this gone too far. I mean, all he did was get the, what put him over the edge was he got the jump scare in the attic, and he's like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And he drops it, and you think, well, okay, this is not gonna be a big deal. But yeah, it ends, he's still on the list to die. That doesn't change anything.
When he actually cemented.
Yeah.
So the whole time that they were fucking with them in the house, it wasn't to kill them. That was the safest they were ever going to be,
drive
was
them
in the
out.
house. Yeah, it was to get rid of them. I thought it was interesting. Earlier in the movie, he asked Deputy Soso, did the people who lived here ever experience any like paranormal stuff? Did they ever report anything? Ever make any police reports? I said no. It would completely nothing happened, and it makes sense because they were driven out of their past house into this house to be killed. So nothing happened until they essentially were killed by their kid and Mr. Boogie. I put this ending up there with The Mist on grim endings.
That's good.
It lands up there at the top. I remember the first time I seen it. You think most writers writing this movie would have had it where, he's going to put these pieces together, and he's going to somehow, even if he doesn't save himself, he's going to somehow save his family. He's going to figure this out. But in reality, all these Super 8 films that he's studying, they are the next Super 8 film. And I love that we actually get to see their deaths, part of it in the Super 8 film. Like her going down the hallway and stuff that they actually did in the Super 8 to show you, they are the newest edition.
Yeah, I don't want to jump into it too much, but I will say that this is one of the biggest mistakes I think the sequel does. In my opinion, if it was, my movie, the second one would have started off with a family moving into this house. And I would have went from there.
Yeah.
But they
I think it was
completely
good.
just, move away from the story. And I'm like, that's a huge mistake, because it just feels like it goes with the first one so much better when you start off. Like, we now, as viewers, we know how it works. We know kind of like, he's going to drive them crazy in this house and then push them to another. Like, we already get the point. We don't have to go through that discovery. And we could have jumped straight into them getting fucked with. We recognize the house. They probably talk about the Oswald murders in the house. And they just, they just completely moved away from that. And I thought that was a huge mistake.
I agree. I think that the next movie should have definitely started from somebody moving into this house. I will say, however, it would have been a really hard write because, this story makes so much sense because it is this true crime writer who's coming here to specifically investigate this. If anybody's going to get to the bottom of what's going on, it's going to be him. And it would have been really hard to kind of top or equal that and make it make sense. I will say, I know there's writers out there who could have pulled it off. It would have been difficult. They could have had Deputy Soso. He's still alive and he knows the story, so he could have showed up to try to save the family and warn them. And the movie could have been about them trying to figure out ways to beat it. But yeah, I definitely think the second one. I've seen the second one. I have it. I do remember it being a lot lesser of the first one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't like it nowhere near as much. All right, so the family that was hung on the tree were all played by stuntmen. However, when the scene was first done, the stunt coordinator botched the preparations for the scene, resulting in the actors legitimately being hanged and choked. Fortunately, though, they survived and the coordinator was fired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
a big fucking mistake that was.
That your only job is to make sure that these people aren't actually hung and you manage to actually hang them.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they showed that scene so many times.
Because
this is legit. Like these people are legit up here hanging.
So Pool Party 66 snuff film and Sinister was extremely difficult to film according to C. Robert Cargill. The actors/actresses who played the doomed family were tied down to lawn chairs, so they were actually strapped, with duct tape to these lawn chairs, and then they were actually pulled underwater in real life.
That actually seems dangerous too. Did this guy get fired too?
The filmmakers had to be extremely careful that nobody was harmed while filming the scene. Further complications occurred while filming the killer underwater, which was played by a guy named Nicholas King. And he had to wear weights and stay underwater for several seconds while he was being filmed. Since the scene was filmed entirely on Super 8 film, care had to be taken to ensure that the camera was properly rolling and that the cartridge and light meter were working. Otherwise, the scene would have to be reshot numerous times. What a fucking sketchy situation this all was.
Yeah, when you first started saying that, I was thinking why the fuck would they... It's as many ways as they have ways to get around stuff in movies and not put people at risk. Why would they have shot it like that? But then I remembered these were shot on Super 8 film.
Yeah, there's
there
no going
no
in and putting
camera
CGI
trickery
or anything in there. It has to be what you see is what you get.
Yeah, and I think that adds to the realism of it, though. I mean, it's all one shot, and it looks real, and it looks like you're watching an actual murder. It was. Had they not, pulled those people out, they would have definitely drowned.
Yeah, when I read that, I immediately thought, because when I see that scene, I always see the second chair that gets pulled in. It immediately flips over on its, like the person flips over and they go face down into the bottom of the pool. And I remember thinking, that's gotta fucking suck because you can't put your hands up to protect your face. Your fucking face right into the concrete. And now I know that really happened.
Yeah, I'm sure they hired stunt people for obviously they probably couldn't for the kids, but they hired stunt people because these weren't actual actors. They didn't have a part in the movie. But if I was in this movie and I did have an actual part, I would have been like, no, you guys have to get a stunt person to do this. Like, there's no way that I can be duct taped to a chair with no way to swim or move or do anything. And you're going to pull me backwards and do a fucking pool in the dark. Not happening.
So in 2020, Forbes magazine conducted a study, Science of Scare Project, where the heart rate of the viewers were monitored while they watched a number of horror films. Out of the 35 films, this movie won, having the highest average heart rate at 86, spiking to 131 beats per minute, thus it often being deemed the scariest movie ever made. I personally don't think it's the scariest movie ever made. I think it does a really good job of being creepy and the killer is really scary. But then again, I have to look at it from somebody who doesn't watch horror movies all the time. A lot of just average people that probably watch, 4 horror movies during I don't know, between September and October. The rest, they watch comedies and reality TV. So I guess, trying to put my headspace there, I could see it being pretty scary.
Yeah, I definitely think it is the one of the scarier movies that's come out this millennium since 2000. It's one of the few movies that I think is legitimately scary. We watch a lot of horror movies like slashers or some of our favorite movies, but watching a Friday the 13th, that's more fun than it is scary in the sense that that's not really going to you're not really going to have this unstoppable giant zombie killer with a hockey mask on that's going to come after you. Like the realism, I think, in the Super 8, and I would really like to know which parts of the movie had the highest heart rate increases, but I have a good feeling it's probably during those Super 8 films. I think those make this movie.
All right, so ratings and kill count. We got a total kills of 20. Got a lot of kills here. We got Jenny Stevenson, who was hung. Brian Stevenson hung. Mr. Stevenson hung. Mrs. Stevenson hung. Mrs. Martinez was burned to death in the car, same as Mr. Martinez. We got Ronnie Martinez, also burned in the car. Pool boy's mother, who was drowned in the pool. Pool boy's father drowned in the pool. Vicky drowned. Amber drowned. You got Peggy Miller, who her throat was slashed. William Miller, same. Jake Miller, same. Dee Luzo, the mother, was run over with the lawnmower. Same for the dad. Same for the daughter. Ellison, who was killed by the axe by Ashley. Tracy, killed by the axe by Ashley. And, of course, Trevor, who was killed by his sister Ashley with the axe.
It's funny that they gave all those random family members who have no other part in the story other than watching them die. They all have names, but Deputy So never got a name. It's just Deputy.
Yeah, he kept that same Deputy So-and-so in the sequel too. All right, so favorite kill.
For best kill, I went with the lawnmower kill. Mainly how unexpected it was and how gruesome of a death it is. I don't know, that one just caught me off guard. I would say a second would definitely be Ellison, being axed down by your own daughter as you look up at her. That's just awful. That's just awful. Or Sinister. I see why they named that. That's about the most sinister thing I could think of.
The name fits the movie for
little
sure.
Girl having to axe you to death, and you look up and watch it. That's awful.
I mean, all these kills in this are sinister, where these kids are drugging their parents with the ghoul splooge, and then killing them in these really fucked up ways while they're awake.
A lot of
very sinister.
Most of them, other than the lawnmower ones and the axings at the end, are very slow and drawn out. We have suffocation.
No breathing.
we have fire, dying by fire in the car, being burned alive, and then drowning. Those are all horrible, very slow ways to die. Yeah, sinister. It fits.
My favorite kill was pool party. Because, as I said earlier, that would literally be my fucking nightmare. I'd rather go in any of these other ways than the pool. Hate it.
I would think being set on fire in a car, my hope would be with that much gasoline that the fire would burn your nerve endings so fast that it would be immense pain, but for a short amount of time, and then you wouldn't feel much after that. Drowning would take some time.
Yeah, hate it. Wouldn't want to do it.
Supposedly painful too. When you take from people who have
no
drowned
breath.
and been
You can't
brought
breathe.
back. Well, apparently, like taking in the water is very painful.
All right, so rating. What'd you give it?
I gave this movie a 4.8. This is an absolute fucking banger. So I picked this movie. I've been wanting to do this movie for a long time. Like I said, it's one of the scariest movies to me that's come out this millennium. The ability to scare on so many different levels, as far as like the unsettling, edge of your seat horror, psychological horror, jump scares. It scares on so many different levels. Like we talked about earlier, although we don't get to see the duration of all of the kills, this is one of the rare times that I will ever say this. It feels right not to show the whole kill to me. The ending, extremely dark, just dreadful. I thought it was perfect for this movie. You know, I love grim endings. Anybody who listens to the show knows that. The Super 8 footage, by far, favorite part of the movie. We talked about that many a times in the last hour. I don't think they could have done the Super 8 any better. Ethan Hawke was able to sell the reactions of Ellison really good. I think it elevated the movie. Thought the character, Bagul, aka Mr. Boogie, thought he was super fucking creepy. I actually loved the backstory that they gave him. They don't explain the whole backstory in this movie, but between some promo stuff in between 1 and 2, a lot of that stuff with the connections to Moloch, a lot of that stuff comes out. Thought the pace, cinematography, and score were all fucking perfect in this movie. And the story itself was super original. It's just one of those, just a story that we've never seen before. Overall, undoubtedly a must-see for any horror fan, in my opinion.
I gave it a 4.8 as well. I would give it a 5 if two things would have happened. One, I could have got a little more out of that lawnmower kill. At least a blood splat, something. Two, if I could have seen that axe hit Ellison.
I do wish...
Would have been 5-star, period.
I do wish... I will say, I do wish we would have got to see the Ellison kill. At least the first hit, just for a second.
Yeah, I don't need to see all of the chopping up of everybody, but that first hit to his face, should have seen it. And I'll tell you right now of why they didn't show that stuff is because they were actually shooting for a PG-13 rating, which is why you don't have a lot of blood. They had a very minimum amount of blood, and it wasn't the gore factor that got them the rated R. It ended up being the darkness of the subject matter. But yeah, they originally did it trying to get a PG-13. So, not really like something that they did on purpose. But I wish that we could have seen that. If I would have seen those two things, 5 stars. I love everything about it. There's not a single complaint about this movie. It's on the very, very, very edge of being a 5-star perfect movie for me.
Yeah. It's a great movie. And that takes us back to the ratings across the board. Man, I'm really surprised at this movie, especially the Google average audience rating. Really surprised that it was as low as it was.
I think it's just really high with horror fans, but maybe not so much just general movie fans.
That's why I say like the Google average audience rating, because normally, all the other ratings kind of represent everybody. But most of the horror movies we cover, the Google is kind of right on par with where we rate them, because I think it's the people that are going and actually watching these and rating them through Google are people who are fans of horror, and they're going and watching horror movies.
Well, as a horror movie, I mean, it almost made $100 million. So, obviously it was liked.
Off $3 million.
Off three, yeah.
That's a huge, huge, huge profit margin.
Well, once again, we thank you guys for listening. Please give us a follow or like if you enjoy the show. Check out our website. Check out the socials. Tell a friend, a family member, or an ancient evil pagan deity about the show. We hope to see you next time. Any last words?
Daddy, I'll make you famous.
Mine are going to be, what the fuck happened to Sinister 2?
Don't drink the splooge.